says, what is the most expensive car ride you can have? An American ambulance, because it's so expensive. Hey there, lovely person watching YouTube. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sajay. I'm an Indian doctor in the UK. If you're already subscribed, welcome back. I love you to the stars and back. On 26th of May, me and my friend Dr. Kiran Mocharia, who's a GP trainee here in the UK, we published a video of us reacting to US medical bills.
How much imaging this patient had. We know a CT scan is costing $6,000, so I'm going to go $10,000. It's actually funny how expensive this is.
5,000. So just for imaging, me as an Indian doctor and him as a UK doctor reacting to US medical bills, and it has got, as of today, it has 1,569,000 views, which is mind-blowing considering I only have 80,000 subscribers. So this is a lot of views. My first video to hit 1 million views, so I was stoked. But the more important thing is the narrative around the comments that I've got in this. Some are funny, some are thought-provoking, and some are outright weird. I've been planning to make this video for quite some time, but I've been kind of putting it off because I just found it weird to, sort of use my own content to make more content from that. But the thing is, some of these comments are really thought-provoking, and some of them are funny, some of them are weird, like I mentioned. But the thing is, the ones that are thought-provoking, sort of help us understand how the American healthcare system works, and I sort of go through them and sort of respond to them and explain how the entire system works so as to give you guys a better picture. Now, before I begin, I have to tell you that I am an Indian doctor. I know about the whole system in India. I'm now in the UK, know a bit about the system in the UK, and I've never been or worked in the US, so I don't know the entirety of how the US healthcare system works, but I have a bit of idea by reading about it and studying about it, and also speaking to my friends who are working there, an idea of how it works. But at some points, at very specific things, I could be wrong, but on the whole, I think I have a good idea about how it works, so that's what we're gonna talk about now. So the first comment is by Supercharged Petrolhead. He says, for 2.5 million bill, they better give me a Bugatti Chiron when I leave the hospital. And to this I've replied, username checks out. So that they were one of the bills. I don't know exactly what it was for because it wasn't mentioned what it was for, but the final bill, it said $2.5 million. So this is sort of like a funny thing, like you better give me a Bugatti Chiron, because no medical treatment should cost that much unless it's like experimental treatment that no one else is getting, and you're one of the biggest funding for the project is from your bill. I don't think any treatment would require a $2.5 million bill, but this is the United States, so yeah, $2.5 million of medical expenses. IKG says, USA, all right, your broken arm would cost you $10,000. However, Germany would say, I'm so sorry, I understand that is extremely inappropriate, but I have to inform you that you'd have to pay for the services of fixing your arm out of your pocket. Again, I'm extremely sorry. The cost from your side would be 20 euros. If you leave a bad review on your way out, we will understand that. Okay, so this is kind of funny, but this sort of is a comparison between the socialistic healthcare system that is here in all states of Europe, most states of Europe, and the capitalistic system that's in the US. Both has its advantages and disadvantages. Like, for example, back in India, where it's mostly capitalistic, socialistic, we do have government healthcare sector providing services, but for the most bit, it's the private sector that sees most of the patients. So in a capitalistic system, I just find it much easier to access services. Like, for example, back in India, if I want to meet a doctor, I can just meet them anytime, maybe even on the same day. Like, I can just walk in, get an appointment, and meet them. And I guess it's the same way in the US as well, because hospitals and doctors want patients to come in because that's how they make money. But here in Europe, in socialistic system, at least in the UK, it's very difficult to get an appointment, and sometimes your GP appointment will be like 2 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now, and your specialist appointment will be like a month from now. Like, I remember when studying for the PLAB 2 exam, like, we have these case scenarios, like these are Auskies. So you're basically like speaking to a person who's acting as a patient. And even in situations like you're suspecting a cancer in someone and it needs to be, evaluated and treated as quickly as possible, because the earlier you pick it up, the easier it becomes to treat. And even a few weeks difference could make a lot of difference in the prognosis of how it is for the patient in the long term. But the urgent referral pathway for cancer, where you refer a patient that you suspect to have cancer for initial assessment to an oncologist or any other specialist doctor, is 2 weeks. Like, it'll take 2 weeks for the patient to be seen by the specialist doctor when you're suspecting that they have cancer. Like, a lot can happen in 2 weeks. Like, it can probably progress from one stage to the other in 2 weeks. So as you can see, in a socialistic system, things are not very convenient. You have to wait for your turn. And there are people who have been waiting for 1 or 2 years to get their elective surgeries done, like hip replacement or like kidney replacement and things like that. So that is a drawback of a socialistic system like the NHS. But on the whole, if someone's severely sick, someone in an emergency, the NHS makes sure that they get the best treatment possible in an emergency. And also when they give you the treatment, when you wait and you get your turn, they make sure that you get the best treatment possible for your issue. So it's not convenient, but you can sort of rest assured that if something goes wrong with your health, the government, the NHS will be there to look after your health. So that peace of mind, goes a long way. So Refurolac, I don't know how that name's pronounced. He or she says, if I broke my leg in USA, I'd rather swim back to Europe than gather the money to pay the bills. Kind of makes sense because it's so expensive in the US. Like, if you break your leg and you require surgery, the surgery could be like $50,000 and the whole bill could come up to $150,000, which is a lot of money. If you don't have insurance, how would you get $150,000 to pay for your medical bills? If you have insurance, that's fine. If you don't have insurance, you're Iman Khan says that South Indian accent comes out when he saw prices was priceless. $9,000? Hey. Well, yeah, I'm South Indian, and when I'm really shocked, as everyone else, when you're really shocked, your main language comes out. And for me, that's the South Indian languages, or probably the South Indianized English. So that's what comes out when I'm quite surprised. And these prices had me shook at. So yeah, I was surprised. Max Allen says, this is how the US government encourages their people to live a healthy life. Then it's kind of funny because a lot of USDA guidelines, like the food recommendations that the US government puts out, are not very accurate. Like, I think Dr. Mike has a video about it as to how the corporate sector controls the dietary guidelines published by the US government. That probably would never happen in a European state, but that kind of happens in America, like how they push a lot of dairy, like to push people to consume a lot of dairy, even though it's not very healthy, probably even unhealthy to consume so much dairy. So yeah, I think Dr. Mike has a video about it. So if you're interested, I'll just link it down in the description. You can watch it. Minions Munch says, US people can travel to India, have CT scan and ultrasound and go back with the same amount. That's the whole concept of medical tourism. Back in India, we used to get a lot of patients from the US, from many other countries, basically, where healthcare is expensive. So they sort of come to India, get treated, get really good treatment for probably a quarter or like just 15% of the cost. Back in the US, get very good treatment, probably on the same level as in the US, and then they would go back. Medical tourism is a big thing in India. Gaurav Upreti says, my dad had an heart attack last year. Doctors had to perform angiography and dad was kept in and out of ICU for almost a month. His total medical bill was equivalent to $700, which was fully covered by the government insurance, for which we pay $45 annually. Not so bad for a third world country like Nepal, eh? I mean, when you say healthcare costs, a lot of things factor in. It's not just the things like the hospital beds or the hospital cost. You have to pay for the services of the healthcare workers as well. For example, a nurse in India would probably get like 20,000 rupees, but a similarly trained nurse in the US or in the UK would be earning like 40, 50 times, 70 times that money. So how do you pay for that services? You either charge the patient or you tax everyone. So tax is how socialist systems work. Like in the UK, the NHS works on the tax that people, give here. In the US, the healthcare system works on the bills the patients pay. So you have to recover costs somehow, and like in a country like India or Nepal or Bangladesh or Pakistan or Sri Lanka or other countries, the services are kind of not very expensive. Like doctors are paid like 55,000 rupees, which is a lot less than doctors are paid here. The same way the nurses are severely underpaid back in India. So the services are cheap, so the bill can be made quite low. And when you have insurance like this guy says, like national insurance or government insurance, that just makes it everything much more simple and much more affordable, because the government is sort of paying for the patient. Again, I don't like it when people use third world country to describe poor countries. Like even when they're describing countries like say India or Pakistan, Bangladesh or Nepal or Indonesia, whatever, they say third world countries as if third world is a bad thing, as if third world describes countries that are poor or backward economically or something like that. Ireland is a third world country, Sweden is a third world country, Switzerland is a third world country. Doesn't mean they are poor. First world countries are the countries that were in NATO and NATO allies, basically people who aligned with the United States during the Cold War. The second world countries are the former USSR and the Soviet-backed countries, like even China. Those are the second world countries. The third world countries, including India, are the countries that chose to remain independent of both these blocks. Those are the third world countries. So third world countries doesn't necessarily mean poor or economically disadvantaged or something like that. So please stop using that terminology here. Kate Stanford says, as an Australian, I can go to a public hospital emergency department for free. I can't believe they care so little about their people. I mean, I understand, like, I think Australia also has a socialist system, kind of like in the UK. Maybe it's different. I'm not entirely sure. If any of you know, please let me know in the comments down below. But even here in the NHS, even if you're not registered at all, like even if you're a tourist, you can just go into the emergency department and most of your emergency treatment would be free. So even in countries that have a capitalistic systems, I think some sort of system has to be developed to make sure that people who need emergency services are provided the emergency services either for free or at an affordable rate, or you have to ensure that people have some sort of insurance that pays for at least these things, something like that. Because I mean, come on, if we are living in the 21st century and if people have to be worried about dying if they just get a disease when you have such good healthcare, it's just an absurd thing. Money shouldn't be a big factor in deciding whether you live or you die with a disease. So maybe the US has to do something in this regard. Sabby Smith says, it's literally why so many people stay unhealthy and end up in poor shape later in life. They can't afford to go. I've broken my finger multiple times and set it myself and went about my life. Now my fingers are screwed, but it beats being in debt for the rest of my life. I can understand the concept behind this. So here in the UK, you're incentivized to go and meet the doctor. Like you get regular checkups, you get regular immunizations, most of the things for free. And even if you are on regular medications, most of them are free or subsidized, or even if not, a single prescription is always around £9 or something like that. So people make sure that they take use of these services. Like they go for a regular GP screening, they make sure that their health is looked at, that their vitals, like their blood pressure, their glucose levels are looked at. So the earlier you pick up on diseases like hypertension or diabetes, the easier it is to treat, and therefore people have a better quality of life. But when you have to pay hundreds of dollars to go and meet a doctor, like I imagine how it happens in the US, you tend not to go, you tend to sort of fix it yourself, and that is what's being described in this comment. I think that random guy comments, doctor, there's something wrong with my bill. I think that's what the patient says, and the doctor is like, what is it? Well, for some reason my phone number is printed in the total amount. And the doctor is like, yeah, about that. Again, it's kind of crazy, like when you have a bill for 2.5 million, it just looks like a phone number, doesn't it? Like with so many digits behind the first two digits. So yeah, it's kind of absurd. Professional Gopnik comments, me gets stabbed in the US. A random person says, someone call an ambulance. And I'd be like, no, I'll just dig my own grave. This is kind of funny, but more so, it is kind of sad because in the US, ambulances cost like a minimum of, I think, $1,000 for a ride, even if it's like quite near to the hospital. I've seen people emailing me about their ambulance bill. Like they say that the hospital bills were covered by the insurance, but they still had to pay out of their pocket for the ambulance, where they were charged like $1,000 or like $2,000 or $3,000 for even a small distance ride, a short distance ride in the ambulance. So the ambulance pricing is really absurd in the US as well. Oh, a similar related comment here by Tactical Lemon says, what is the most expensive car ride you can have? An American ambulance, because it's so expensive. Day late and dollar short says, patient, hello doctor. And the US doctor would be like, hello, and it'll be $4.99 for the greeting. And patient is shocked. You know, not kidding. Like I saw one of the bills, like I think it was posted on Instagram or Reddit or somewhere, where the person, they said like they had an emotional breakdown during the procedure or something like that, and the doctor sat next to them, you know, comforted them or something like that. And in the bill there was something like comfort charges or emotional charges or something like that for $11. You bill for every little thing. It's kind of just absurd. Maybe it was for something else, but you know, I'm thinking like if you have an emotional bill for $11, what else could it be other than for the comforting that the doctor has done? Zulfikar Tora Vibo says, for $95,000 in imaging, they better revive Da Vinci and having paint the my innards, or I'm not paying. This is kind of really funny, and I hadn't read this before. Yeah, it's kind of absurd to pay $95,000 for imaging, because basically, yes, you're paying for the machines which cost a lot, some close to $1 million. But again, you're not gonna recover all of that from a single patient, are you? And even for the services, yes, you're gonna pay the radiologist a lot, but again, how much can you pay a doctor for one scan? And even if you get like 10 scans, it shouldn't be $95,000. So yeah, that's kind of absurd. Lucas Lang says, this is why as a Canadian I get confused when people bash us for our healthcare system. I'd rather lose some money to taxes for a longer wait time and less medical costs than paying the price of a house. It is true that a lot of, the most of the healthcare costs in socialistic systems like in the UK and I think even in Canada as well is taken from people's taxes. But that doesn't mean people are paying a lot more tax than in the US. Let's just take a look. So I found this article which compares the taxation in UK, other countries in Europe, as well as in the US. So let's just take a look if people here in the UK and in socialistic healthcare systems actually pay much more than the people in US or not. So going through each country, let's just take the gross salary at $100,000 because it's just easy to, like compare things when it's multiples of 10 or multiples of 100. So let's say the gross salary is $100,000, which is like fits into the higher tax bracket. After tax, someone would be taking £65,780. So the tax rate is 34.3%, which is quite high compared to countries like in India. But let's just compare it to other countries in Europe and to the United States of America. So in Ireland, if you're making £100,000 equivalent in euros, you'll be taking £59,000 home. So tax rate is 41%, and Ireland has a very similar system as the UK. I know because I've been there, and my uncle and aunt, they work in the healthcare system back in Ireland. So France, I think they have a socialistic system because I saw one of the comments saying France has a good system or something like that. So if you make a gross salary of $100,000, you'd be taking home £40,600 if you make £100,000. So the tax rate is 59.4%. So you basically pay the government more than you take home, which is, I wouldn't want to be there. Spain 34%, Germany 38%, almost in the same category as the UK, but the UK is much less because it's 34%. Sweden 45%. The United States tax rate for £100,000 equivalent is 34.2%. Think about it. In the US, if you are earning the equivalent of 100,000 pounds, you would be paying 34.2%. In UK, you'd be paying 34.3%, just 0.1% raise, and you get all of these perks. And the main perk is the NHS. The fact that you know that you don't need to worry about your healthcare costs, that there's the government and the taxpayer, your tax, it's gonna cover your healthcare costs. You're paying quite a lot of tax, 34% is quite a lot, but you know that you have that peace of mind, so that's okay. But in the US, you pay 34.2% and you don't get healthcare for free or even subsidized. And we all know where a lot of that money goes. But this video is not about that. We're not trying to get any controversies here, but we all know where that goes, right? But that goes against the argument that in the UK healthcare is free because we're taxed so much or something like that. People are taxed in the similar brackets in the US as well. Of course, on a higher bracket, the taxation is a bit low compared to the UK in the US. But hey, how many of us are gonna make more than 100,000 pounds to be worried about higher taxation? So for the average person, the taxes in the UK make a much more sense than taxes in the US, at least when it comes to healthcare. Antiska comments, doctor, congratulations, it's a boy. Credit card declines and they go to pay the bill. And doctor is like, time to go back, little buddy. I mean, you can't do that. I think there are a lot of other ways to recover the bills if the patient can't pay for it, if they don't have insurance or something like that. But yeah, it's just a funny take on it. So that was it. Thanks for watching. I hope you got something out of this video. The whole point of this video wasn't to criticize some healthcare system and say some other is better. Like I said, there are pros and there are cons to each healthcare system. You just have to decide what's best for you. And if you're not in a socialistic healthcare system, make sure you have health insurance. And I'm not going to plug in health insurance sponsor or something here. I'm just saying it for your well-being. So make sure you have a health insurance and make sure you keep yourself healthy. That being said, I'll see you in the next video. Take care. Bye-bye.